welcome to the Abundology podcast. My name is Renee Spears, and I'm here today with Lael Petersen, who is a mindset and habits coach. And you combine your experience as a mental health therapist with the ancient healing traditions of yoga and Ayurveda. So, I'm an Ayurveda fan. I talk about it in my weekly podcast when the seasons change and all that. So I've been looking forward to talking to you about this, and in particular, our body rhythms. And because I know that you and I have had this conversation before about body rhythms, and I think I even mentioned to you when I stopped working, I had a really difficult time finding my natural rhythm after years and years of it being artificially inflated, to go out there into the world.
Yes.
So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to your audience about this today. It'll be fun.
Yes. So how did you start into this? You were a therapist for a number of years, and then how did you make the transition over to more of a mindset and habits coach?
Yeah, a couple of things happened. One is after sitting in a therapist chair for many, many years, I would see my clients struggling with the same things again and again. They would come in and we would make some progress in terms of understanding their situation and understanding what they wanted to do. And they would feel excited and motivated, and they would go back into their regular lives where they were living, like many of us, totally out of sync. Staying up too late, not eating regularly, not moving their bodies, not meditating, and all of that great progress they'd make in therapy would kind of fall away. So they'd have to come back for another appointment. We tune them up,
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I began to see that there was this disconnect between what people were trying to do with their minds, right? The mental health, and what was happening in the body. And at the same time, I was having my own experiences with healing the body. I got diagnosed with cancer when I was 38 years old and had 2 small children, and kind of dove deep into my own alternative healing while also seeing my therapist. But I began to see this yoga, Ayurveda, mind-body connection, and I just couldn't not talk to people about it.
Right.
So I ditched the therapy practice and I transitioned to coaching. And now I use, my years of experience as a therapist and my own healing journey, but also this deep wisdom of Ayurveda to help people just fall into alignment with their natural rhythm. And yeah, go ahead.
So did you find then, because before, if you were dealing with the mind first and the body wasn't aligning, are you finding that you need to align with the body first? Is that where the work starts?
Absolutely. This is what I see a lot, is that people work really hard on their mindset. Like, let's say they're an entrepreneur and they're working very hard on visualizing where they want to go and manifesting opportunities. And it's all this mental work and some energetic work too. But they're totally out of integrity with their body habits. Again, they're not sleeping regularly, they don't meditate, they're not exercising, right? The body, because it is the most dense layer of our bodies, right? It will pull us out of alignment all the time. Our symptoms will continue to talk to us. Our bowels will act up, our migraines, our PMS, whatever, right? So what happens is that people spend so much time working on the mental plane, which is awesome, but they forget that we need to start with the body.
Yes. So do you recommend then starting with the basics, the exercise, the sleep, the meditation, all of that stuff that we know we should be doing?
It's always what we know we should be doing. Yes, but I think the approach that I take is a little different. Because what Ayurveda teaches us, Ayurveda, for people that don't know, is the sister science to yoga. So it's the healing tradition that came out of India. And much like Chinese medicine, some people are familiar with their naturopath practicing Chinese medicine or acupuncture. Ayurveda is similar, right? But it's the sister science to yoga. And Ayurveda really means the science of life. It's teaching us sort of like what is natural. Here's how to have a body. Here's how the world works and how you are not separate from nature, right? And if you can understand how nature works and therefore how your body works, then our job is just to line up with that, to sync up with that, rather than being like an exercise program and a diet plan. And we see people doing a lot of self-improvement stuff, but they're kind of missing the mark if it isn't actually in alignment with their body, with what their body needs.
And that changes based on everything, based on nature. Honestly, the seasons, the temperature, is all of that.
Absolutely, right. In Ayurveda, we understand that there is a daily rhythm, right? The sun rises and the sun sets. And there's different, if you are paying attention, most of us have had the experience of experiencing something different at sunrise or sunset, right? Like, why do people always post pictures of sunsets? Why do people want to go to the beach at sunrise? You know, we know that there's a different energy at that time than there is in the middle of the day and in the middle of the night. And so this rhythm is happening in nature every day. It's also happening seasonally, right? Like what's happening outside of us at this time here in the Northwest, springtime, feels very different than fall. And it isn't just the temperature, right? It's the energy of what's happening around us. And then we also have a rhythm over our lifetime, right? So what we are experiencing in our 30s and 40s and 50s is different than what we're experiencing post-menopause, 60s, 70s, 80s. So understanding that natural rhythm, that's what Ayurveda teaches us and invites us to do, is just to start syncing up with where you are in your daily rhythm, with the seasons in the year, and then also in your particular stage of your life.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. My mom is 75 and she is an active person. So we just had the conversation. She said, I'm not as active as I used to be, and I'm wondering if something's wrong with me. And so she went to the doctor, and the doctor's like, well, what did you do today? She's like, well, I played 18 holes of golf, and then I cleaned the house, and I washed the windows, you know, and she's 75. It's interesting then to see her not acknowledging that perhaps her rhythm may be slowing down a little bit.
Yes, and that there's wisdom to that, right? Yes. In our culture, we often overvalue what in the dosha, pitta dosha is what we call it in Ayurveda, this fire, right, of achievement and accomplishment and go-getting and how much did I get done. Like our culture values that so much. But there are other energies operating as well that are just as valuable and just as necessary. But when we don't honor them, then we become out of balance. And that's what Ayurveda says disease is, as it manifests in the body or mind, is being out of balance, living out of sync with nature, and repeating past mistakes without learning your lessons. But for your mom, right? Like she might be really, like personality-wise, much more of a go-getter. And I know I can identify with this. I have high pitta. I am a girl who likes to get shit done, right? But if we don't understand the other energies at play and begin to bring them in with their own wisdom, then we can create imbalances in our life.
Can you explain a little bit about the three doshas then, and how those, I believe there's three, right?
Yeah.
Pitta, Kapha, and what's the other one?
Vata.
Oh, that's right.
I'll do my best to keep it really simple because Ayurveda is a very deep and fascinating science, which you could spend tons and tons of time learning and exploring. But in general, there are three doshas, and dosha means energy. So dosha just means the energies that happen in nature and also inside of us. And there's three. Kapha, which is Kapha. It's dominated by the elements of earth and water. So it provides stability and groundedness. It slows us down. It's loving. It's nurturing when it's in balance. When it's out of balance, it can be a little couch potato-y, a little heavier in our bodies, a little more hoarding of behaviors and resistant to change. So each of the energies have a place of balance and a place of out of balance. Then the second dosha is Pitta, P-I-T-T-A, and it's dominated by fire and water. And Pitta is in charge of the metabolism of not only what we put in our bodies, but also what we take in mentally and emotionally. Pitta is what gives us our drive and our go-get-itness and our hot temper when we're too much, right? And then there's Vata, and Vata is dominated by the elements of air and ether, ether meaning space, right? And Vata is really about the action of movement and ideas and inspiration. And when it's out of balance, it can look like flightiness or scatteredness, right? Or not following through on things. It can look like insomnia in the middle of the night in our bodies. So Ayurveda invites us to understand that we are made up of what they call the tridosha inside of us. We have all three of those things operating inside of us and also in nature around us. So while we may be unique in our manifestation, right? Like your mom might have more of a pitta personality,
Right.
a go, 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 lots of energy, lots of ideas, probably sharp, maybe smart, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone else might be more dominated by kapha energy. We see this in our massage therapists or the woman at the blues festival, the woman who's just at home with her body, but also may not have a lot of go-get 'em. Right?
Yep.
And that energy is beautiful as well. We need that as well. So understanding your own constitution and then also how your daily rhythm works and then where you are in your stage of life is much more uniquely healing for you than following somebody else's CrossFit workout plan or rigid diet plan or self-improvement project. That's what I believe.
So how do you go about getting in touch with your daily rhythm and the rhythm of life?
Yeah, well, you can definitely learn, but I like to start with teaching people this daily habits of yogis, which is called dinacharya. And it is the daily rhythm that yogis practiced, not to, look awesome in their summer swimsuit.
Right.
But to achieve enlightenment. Because the yogis understood that the body and mind were connected. So they knew that if you took care of the body, it would clear up the channels to the mind. And that is where we could experience more than being stuck in the physical plane, right? So dinacharya invites us to a number of habits around our body care that have mind-body benefits. So as I teach them, I start with an earlier, lighter dinner. Do you want me to tell you a little bit about that? Do you think people are interested in hearing about the
I'm very interested in.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very interested.
You just stop me if I'm like, no, that's not, people are not interested in that. Okay. So the daily rhythm, according to Ayurveda, looks like this. You start with an earlier, lighter dinner. We understand that your digestive system, because it's made of fire, right? Think about like hot guts, digestive juices, is in line with the sun. And so your digestion is hottest or strongest when the sun is the highest. And your digestion goes to sleep at night because it has other jobs to do, like sleeping and cleaning house and taking out the waste from the day and all of that. It doesn't need to be digesting lasagna or half a bottle of wine. So earlier, lighter dinner starts cooperating with your digestion. And we know the intermittent fasters will tell you this, or the people who have practiced some kind of detox or cleanse, they've said like, oh my God, I felt amazing when I stopped putting food in my mouth all the time. And so instead of doing extreme detoxes and cleanses and getting all crazy, I just invite people to start thinking about eating most of their calories in the middle of the day instead of at nighttime at 7 o'clock in front of the TV. That first habit is often so profound for people and so immediate in how they feel. They're like, oh my God, I had no idea. And then they start connecting mind and body, right? The next habit is early to bed. We understand that the energy of pitta kicks in at 10 p.m. We often refer to this as our second wind. Entrepreneurs and workaholics love the second wind. I can get so much done after my kids go to bed. But what they don't understand is that second wind is actually designed for your body to keep house. It's designed for your body and your organs to clean house at night. And when you stay awake during that time instead of resting, your body never gets to clean house. It never takes out the trash. That might not be a big deal if you have a deadline and you need to work crazy hours for a couple of weeks, or you have a brand new baby and your sleep's all jacked up. But if you do this over time, decade after decade after decade, you will end up sicker, right? And more miserable by time, because the body just never gets to reset in the way that it needs to.
Yeah.
When you start, go ahead.
Yeah. So early digestion, it's interesting. A lot of these have to do as when you age too. My kids tease me about, eating dinner. Like I like to eat dinner like at 4 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock. They call it, like the blue plate special time, So, but now it makes complete sense, that early digestion. Yeah.
Yes. So this is interesting, Renee, is that people, when they start learning these habits, they have experiences just like you've had, where you're like, oh, I kind of knew this anyway for some reason, or I've seen myself trending this way. I don't metabolize my alcohol as well anymore. My guts don't tolerate the lasagna at 8 o'clock. This is your body talking to you, right? And so instead of waiting until we're 45 or 50 and have blown out our adrenal system and are on like synthetic whatever to support our system, we can learn how to do this before we actually burn ourselves out. Start syncing up earlier with your natural rhythm, with that of nature. It's pretty remarkable what can happen.
And it's so simple. Yeah.
But they're all simple. They're all free.
Yay,
you don't have to
like that.
You don't have to buy a DVD or pay a program or whatever. It's like, this is just understanding your own nature and then lining up. But it is difficult, right? Because changing our habits is difficult, which is why I love to teach people about how to make habits easier. But the habits in of themselves are common sense. They're like what your grandma probably did.
Yeah, exactly. So we have the early digestion and then early to bed. Any others that you want to add to that?
Yeah, the other two that I think are really important and people get a lot of traction out of is the habit of starting the day right. And we see a lot about this around like morning mindset or setting your intention for the day. And that's exactly what Ayurveda teaches us, that the hours at just before sunrise and just after sunset are like when the veil is the thinnest. Mm-hmm. It's called the Brahma Muhurta. It's like the most holy time of the day. And if we think about, religions all across the world have known this as prayers at certain times of the day because the connection is clearer. So we know, even the neuroscientists will tell us that the brain is even more malleable when it first wakes up and right before we fall asleep. So in my course, what we talk about is really using that very precious time to its maximum benefit. Whether you start your day with a prayer, or you orient towards what you're grateful for, or imagine that your day is going well, whatever it is, please don't let it be scrolling on your phone. Right? Like, why would you fill your brain with that first thing? Okay? Yes. So that's mental hygiene. So start the day right, start in the right mindset, and then hydrate and poop. Give yourself water before coffee and get rid of your waste. And we talk about poop in my course because, nobody likes to talk about it, but it actually is a really common thing for people to be chronically constipated or have irritable bowels, and they just don't understand like what that's about. So taking out the trash before you start the day is a great way to start your day. And then
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm so fascinated by poop.
It's a fun one. Either people love to talk about it, Renee, or they're like, oh my God, I don't want to talk about that habit at all.
Well, I guess I'm a love to talk about poop person. So tell me a little bit then, because I'm too much info. I'm a regular type person, and I'm always shocked when people aren't like that and can go days without going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Any helpful hints, any information that you can share around that may help people?
Well, I always say go back to the habits. You don't need to get complicated with big supplements or crazy shit. Like, just go back. Understand that when you put food in your body all the time and your body can't digest it, it builds up over time. You put foods in your body that your body can't handle, you put out your digestive fire. It'd be like putting, wet logs on a smoldering fire. Eventually the fire just goes out. Right?
Yeah.
So Ayurveda is really about stoking your digestive fire. And some people have a naturally hot fire, right? People with high pitta, high fire element, they can burn through stuff like crazy, right? But if you've been compromised through stress, chronic stress, or you've had chemotherapy, or you've had, any kind of trauma, it can shut the bowels down because it's so intricately related to the nervous system. So earlier, lighter dinner is one wonderful way. Fasting, like closing your kitchen after dinner, not snacking all night long, not drinking, great way to start building digestive fire because the fire builds through rest. And the other thing is hydrating in the morning. Like, don't start with coffee. Start with some water, hydrate your cells. And then from there, we talk about movement and we talk about maybe, some more fiber-rich foods and, all of that. But really, it's about aligning with your system and then training your body to go to the bathroom in the morning.
So there's training.
There is.
Of course.
This is when we go.
Yeah, it is when we go. And I know when I've had early morning meetings, that are during that time, it messes up my whole day.
You're like, I gotta go.
I know, I'm sorry, but this is the time.
Yes.
So are there some common rhythms that you see for all of us then?
Yes, this circadian rhythm, I think, is really important for people to understand, and where honestly people have a lot of pushback. A lot of women, especially mothers or working mothers, love to use those evening hours as a time to get shit done, right? And so it's very challenging for them to start understanding that fatigue that they feel when they tuck their kids in at 8:30 they should honor that and go to bed. Because then what will happen is that they can then start the day earlier, and they'll begin to use those really sort of like vata present, very clear, inspirational, I can crank all kinds of work out. My meditation practice is easier in those pre-dawn hours or those early morning hours, right? So helping people sort of align to that natural rhythm or understand that is where they might feel even better, I think is really important.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And I imagine right now when we're stuck at home and
yes.
It's becoming harder and harder for some people. Other people may be finding more of their rhythm now. They don't have the external time clock
yes.
that they're So have you seen that people right now are struggling more with finding that rhythm or not?
Well, I'm seeing a trend. So we're about 8 weeks in here in the Northwest of sheltering in place, right? And what we saw at first was a real high vata activation, that sort of like frenetic energy of like, oh my God, I need to collect all the toilet paper and I don't know what I'm doing, and the kids and the online and the blah, 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 right? There was a lot of anxiety, a lot of energy, a lot of not sleeping well. People are eating all the foods that's just like out of rhythm, right? And then we saw this little slump into like, holy shit. How long is this going to go on?
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is terrible, right? And so then people were sort of struggling in that middle times there. I think we're transitioning into another phase now, but it has been this phase of like, I got to figure something else out. Like what I was doing wasn't working. Being in panic mode isn't sustainable, right? I need to find something that's going to work. And so what I think people are beginning to figure out is like, oh, it actually works best for me to take a walk before I log on in the morning. Or it's actually best for me to do that online yoga class instead of just watching TV. And I'm hearing people are beginning to like, I walk the dog every day at noon, or they're beginning to find their rhythm. Ayurveda takes that to another level for people who are really interested in the mind-body connection, but people are naturally starting to figure this out for themselves.
Well, this has been a nice break then for a lot of people that may not have had this opportunity, you young kids and you're working and not even having an opportunity to listen to your body to figure out what it's even telling you.
Yeah, I think this is a tremendous opportunity. I think the challenge is that we are so easily distracted by our other competing demands, right? And our story we tell ourselves about what is actually most important. And we're seeing this among moms who have children now who are trying to homeschool, sort of kind of letting go of maybe the expectation that it all be done perfectly as their priorities start to shift, right?
Right.
Where they're prioritizing connection over accomplishment.
Right.
So I think this can happen for people too, if they can slow down enough to see this as an opportunity to really like reset and rebuild so that we can come back, not as we were before, right? But clearer, more grounded, more resourced in a way to, whether it's with our business or with our relationships or the greater work of the world. I think this is a real opportunity for people to figure that out, and not by adopting another rigid plan. Like you can tell my pet peeve. I get a lot of recovering plan followers, who come to me and they've tried Beachbody and they've tried this and they've tried that and they've done this and this and this, right? And they've done a ton of therapy but they've never understood or trusted or learned about their own rhythm.
Well, I have been a fan of Ayurveda for the last couple of decades, even, to sometimes even monitoring the foods that I eat to offset, too much of pitta or, all of that. So it makes a huge difference, especially to me when the seasons shift.
Yes.
You know, my body, I honestly, sometimes it takes me a little bit to get shifted with the season.
Yes.
So it's nice to have this information. And I know that we're coming up soon, very soon to summer. So are there some things that are easy and universal that we can do to kind of shift from the energy where we are now, more moving into more of a summer energy?
Absolutely. Well, I think that the whole pandemic quarantine scenario is going to be fascinating to watch how this manifests. But typically what we experience in spring is this resurgence of energy. This is when you start seeing people out jogging, and like they're coming out of, in the Northwest here, they're coming out from underneath the blankets, and they're like, hey, they're attuning to that natural life that's coming back, right? And Ayurveda encourages us to think about eating what is coming up naturally. So things that are sprouting, lots of greens. We don't need to be eating a lot of meat and nuts. We don't need to squirrel away for the winter anymore. We need to lighten up, right? Lighten up and dry out, essentially. As we move into summer, when it's dominated, you can imagine, by Pitta dosha, because of the sun and the heat, right? We have a tendency to kind of like take that energy of spring and just like plow right into summer. Go, go, go. Camping every weekend, parties, barbecues, because we've been in winter all, you know, hiding away all winter. And the problem with that is that if we don't balance that high intensity, right? Like if we're too much of one thing, then we arrive in fall really depleted, and then we wonder why we get sick. And so summertime is a real opportunity for us to like harness that sort of warm, hot, go get 'em energy, right? But also bringing a lot of cooling elements in. And again, the habits really help with this. When you start to understand that the evening hours are for maybe a little gardening or some walking or something, but then it's also about tuning into your natural fatigue, like laying in the hammock, maybe not putting hot alcohol in your body every night. People love to drink all summer, and it's like fire on fire, you know?
Oh my goodness, it's so true. And you see people out in the sun drinking in the summer.
My God. And then they wonder why they burn out. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So there are things you can do with your diet by bringing more cooling foods in, things like cucumber and watermelon. I mean, they're all the foods that nature provides us at that time of year. It's nothing magical. It's like, look at what's in display at the farmer's market. That's what you need to be eating. You don't need to be eating pumpkin pie in July. That's a warm, grounding food for fall, when it starts getting kind of cold and airy. Right? So this stuff, once you start understanding it, it isn't rocket science. You just start paying attention to like, So for most people, I tend to recommend that they think about where they're going to build in some downtime in summer, because they often do too much go, 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 go. I don't know, with us living at home, how much go, go, go we will be able to fulfill. So it may be interesting. People might be more settled into the hammock lifestyle. And we might see people not being as sick in the fall from it, which immunity and being aligned with your rhythm and all of that. I mean, we could go off about how important that is right now, particularly what we're dealing with. Yeah.
Yeah. What a fabulous way to look at it, that we could come out of the summer being healthier than we've ever been. Not only when ourselves, but I'm going to say our society too. And you know, they're saying another flu season, of course, and in the fall that coronavirus could ramp back up in that time. So to take the summer and take advantage of it to heal and get ready and go into the fall healthier, I love that.
Right, because we're not destined to get that virus.
Right.
We are susceptible to it when our bodies are out of integrity, when there's when there's space for the virus to come in, right? And so it's really important to understand around cellular integrity and body integrity that's like your defense, that's your immunity, that's your natural defense. And when you are depleted or living out of rhythm, those are the cracks. That's where stuff comes in. I grew a cancer, so I have firsthand experience of like at 37, you know, with no family history. Yeah. So I have a deep passion for helping people understand, like, not everything in life is preventable, right? But there are some things that we could be doing. But sometimes us bullheaded Americans like to think I should be able to drink the coffee and do all the things, and then I don't understand why I have to take thyroid medicine. And it's like, sweetheart, you know, you can't just keep the gas pedal going all the time without consequences.
Yeah. We take better care of our cars than we do our bodies in this country. It's just, it's
Yes.
crazy. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
I hadn't thought about that. But that's very true.
Well, clearly you know what you're talking about. I thank you for all of these really, I have to say, simple things that we kind of know anyway. Our grandparents knew, and if we just watched them being more in touch with the world and the earth and the planet, we could have learned a lot from them.
Yes.
So I do know that you've given a really great special to the Abundology listeners, 20% off your Vibrant Body and Mind course. And I will put the link in the show notes to your website where you can sign up for that and purchase that. So I appreciate you doing that. Can you tell us just a little bit about that course?
Yeah, that course is where I take you through the 10 habits, one habit each week. And so you learn these 10 habits of this daily rhythm, and we build on it from the beginning all the way through the end. And so you leave that with a really embodied experience of what the habits are. And then I also teach you the science of habit change. So the psychology of how to change your habits, because so many people know what they're supposed to be doing, but they don't really understand how to create a habit. And I think that piece is really helpful for people to understand how to cooperate with the brain to actually make these habits last, not just for while they're hanging out with me, but for the rest of their lives. And then we do it in a group, because we know that people evolve faster in a group rather than doing it on their own. And so the group momentum and the experience of growing and evolving and learning from each other is it's the third most crucial part of that program.
Yeah, I love the talking about the habits, because I think that most people have absolutely no idea how to break a habit, how to create a habit.
Yeah.
We've heard in our country, the 21 days to, yeah. So just we could have another whole show on habits. So how about I have you back in a couple months and we'll talk just about habits.
It is actually one of my more popular workshops, because people are fascinated to find out that things like willpower and motivation and some of these things that we've been fed don't actually work in the long run. And there's actually more efficient ways to do it once we understand how the brain actually lays down habits. So I'd love to come back and talk if that's interesting to your guests.
That would be great, because I think that some people beat themselves up, and there must be something wrong with me because I don't have the willpower to change this habit or whatever. So it would be lovely to get the science behind it. So
I would love to relieve them of that, because shame has never helped us create better habits.
Well, thank you so much, Lael. It's been lovely talking with you. You have so much knowledge, and we'll have you back in a couple months.
Sounds great, Renee. Thanks so much.